How many of us think our dreams are impossible? It's something that you may never admit to. And yet there's something that's playing in the back of our minds that's saying, that can't be. And I don't know why it's necessary for us to do this, because there is an infinite good that we are surrounded by. There is an infinite good that we are immersed in. And it is cheering for us. It's that drum major that's cheering for us. It's absolutely knowing that we can do it. And so whatever our experiences have been along the way, we are never separated from our good. We are never separated from this truth. Now, within us, we have this concept of what it is that will make our hearts sing. Whether it is to create art, or whether it is to create business, or whether it is to create joy, music, writing, whatever it may be, there is something that was installed in your software from the beginning that God said was good. So who are you to say that it is not? I'm just saying. If you can trust that there is something that is absolutely knowing your highest and best good at all times and in every way, no matter what is going on, no matter what the weather is, no matter what the news says, no matter what the gossip is, no matter what is happening, there is something within you that is seeking to reveal itself, and you can step out of the way and let it have its full sway. There is a man named Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., whose birthday we've been celebrating this weekend and through tomorrow. And there was a concept that he had that was more than a concept. It was more than a thought. He didn't say, I have an idea. He didn't say, I have a thought. He didn't say, I have a proposition. He said, I have a dream. Now, the very truth is that he had a conviction. He had a belief that no water hose, no dog, no legislation, no bigotry, no hatred could ever defeat or diminish. And that was spoken into a law that this preacher man knew was receptive to it. You know, Dr. Martin Luther King studied with Howard Thurman, and Howard Thurman was most definitely a metaphysician, so he knew the laws of the universe that we're working with, particularly now as we go back to the basics and look at what it does, what the universe does, what the spirit does. It absolutely says yes to our belief. It absolutely says yes to that which we are convicted to. It absolutely says yes to that which we believe. And so there is no reason that you need to worry about Martin Luther King's dream. The dream that you may want to be thinking about right now is your own. Martin Luther King's dream is just fine. No matter how you may think that you have the perspective to judge it or to measure it or to quantify it, it's really none of your business. Your dream is your business. And so that is why we're looking at the topic, it works. And so when we have an understanding that law is as much of an attribute of God as spirit is, the creator, the first cause that put everything into motion and continues to put things into motion and continues to create out of its substance, the omnipotent presence of God, the omniscient knowingness of God, the omnipresent beingness of God is here. And it always will be. There will never be a time when it isn't. And the other attribute of God is that it is law. It is absolutely receptive to that which we believe. So what it does is it responds. Yes. It supports. Yes. The divine idea is one that has come from itself to be fulfilled through you. If you decide that you do not have the faith that is necessary, consciously or unconsciously, then you are now qualifying your faith to a degree that you are saying, well, I only believe this much. And you will always find what you believe by what you're experiencing in your life. That's just the way it works. That's what it does. If you have a little bit of faith, then you have a little bit of your dream. If you have a lot of faith, then you'll have most of your dream realized. And so because we are being invited to just simply and quietly accept the good, we don't even have to announce it to anybody else. We don't have to tell them, well, you know, I'm working on this big deal. We don't have to tell anybody, well, you know, I'm working on this masterpiece. We don't have to tell anybody, well, you know, I'm choreographing this thing. We don't have to tell anybody until it's time for us to know that we are completely and absolutely, without a doubt, stepping into our dream. See, that unqualified faith is the faith that the law is working for you. So when you know that there is no way for you to fail, and I'm affirming this, to look to your neighbor and say, there is no way for you to fail.
There is no way for you to fail.
No way for you to fail.
Do you understand that? Can you accept that if you don't understand? Because God is the only power that is. Yes?
Yes.
Yes.
You are God. Hello?
Yes.
Did you leave?
No. Yes.
How can the only power that is fail? It's not possible. It's not possible. Everything that we are co-creating is in our power, in our hands, at our will. So as we choose, we might want to try to explore this positivity accompanying all of our statements that we affirmed this morning. You know, you can keep regurgitating the CNN, the constantly negative news. You can keep regurgitating what you read in the newspaper. You can have the first thing that you say when you get on the phone, did you see what happened to so-and-so? See, but when the man was over there at the 79th Street Bridge, and once I found out what was happening after I was going like 5 miles an hour for about an hour, when I found out, because, you know, I got the police connection, and they said, okay, the man is threatening to go off the bridge, so I knew that I needed to drop into prayer. And what I needed to know for him was what he wasn't able to know for himself. And whenever there comes a time when you're not able to know your greatness, you better be on the phone with a practitioner or a minister. You better be on the phone with somebody who knows truth when you have forgotten. When you've gotten all mixed up in this race thought, when you've gotten all mesmerized by the stuff that's happening in the world, by people who have illusions about being disconnected from their good, then you better call somebody. We got prayer lines for you to call. We got prayer line, 2 or 3 different ones. You can call Unity, you can call Agape, you can call CSL, Center for Spiritual Living, you can email a prayer request. Just reach somebody who knows truth when you decided to go to sleep and become unconscious about your own true power. When you decided to nap off in the middle of your greatness emerging, then you need to wake up enough to be able to to put something on speed dial so that you don't even have to think about what the numbers are. You need to be able to put something that is at your fingertips. Not that you're expecting to fall asleep, but stuff happens. Yes? That's why we have fire departments and the police departments and streets and sanitation and all of these other services. Things go in a direction that we don't expect sometimes, but that doesn't mean that we can expect that things are going to go wrong more than they're going right. It's just not the nature of the universe. Even when it appears to be going wrong, the universe is still conspiring for your highest and best good, whether you know it or not, because your omnipotence may be clouded by the circumstances such that you can't remember that everything is working together for your good and the good of all concerned. So when you affirm that I am trusting in this loving, supportive universe, this is what you were in fact affirming. And so if it needs be that you need to do affirmations to remind yourself that you're not simply spouting off words, but you are actually reprogramming your mind to remember what you knew before you took this incarnation, before you decided to come to this dimension to explore something about yourself that needs expansion. Remember, you did not come here to diminish yourself. You came here to expand yourself. You came into this plane that seems to be limited by the senses, but even that is just a perception and not rooted in true knowledge, not rooted in true knowing, not rooted in the omniscience that is the very true nature of who you are. So when you get off course, there's always a way to course correct. Any pilot can tell you that. If a wind comes along and knocks you off of your flight path, then there is always a way to course correct to get you back on track into your direction that you're heading in. And if you do have to land in a place that you weren't expecting to land in, then just know that even then your highest and best good is being supported by the universe. If you needed to proceed forward in a time and in a space where there was turbulence that has been really kind of sent into the universe by all of these conflicting thoughts that we have about ourselves and our worthiness and our capacity to be, do, and know our greatness, when that starts to do a dance with the universal elements of wind and water and fire and all of these things start to occur, perhaps you find yourself in an experience where things are kind of shaky. And when you find yourself in that particular moment, is an opportunity for you to absolutely check in with the divine that is within you. Choose heaven today. Choose heaven in that moment rather than being all convinced that hell is happening. When in truth, hell is a temporary state. It is never, even the Catholics considered a place called purgatory because they knew hell was temporary. But when you absolutely know that hell has no place in the eternity of things, you know yourself, any kind of fire that you see, it just doesn't keep going. At some point, it eventually does go out. And because it is an effect, it cannot be eternal. It can only be temporary. But heaven is eternal. That which is within you continues to move on, even if your body can no longer keep up with its magnificence. So, what I want you to know is that you do have the faith, as you affirmed. You do have the faith to consciously oppose despair. You do have the faith to consciously oppose sadness. You do have the faith to consciously oppose doubt. You do have the faith to consciously oppose worry. None of those things are creative. Despair cannot create good. Doubt cannot create good. Worry cannot create good. So if you find yourself in that activity, know that you have then somehow gotten yourself plugged into the matrix, and that you need to disconnect from the realm of illusion and tune in to the knowingness of who you are as spirit. That your divine nature is ever ready, better than ever ready bunny. It's ever ready for you to return, just simply waiting for you to return so that it can do what it needs to do through you. God is expecting to have a good time as your life. You know, if you want to give God, you know, kind of a wallflower experience, then, you know, you can. But, you know, there's a place where if you do decide to be still, that at least you can be still and know. At least you can be still and remember. At least you can be still and know that that which is in you is greater than anything that you may perceive outside of you. And so when you absolutely know that there really is no impossible dream, there really is only an illusion that it seems to be unbearable. When you are absolutely so convicted that you are willing to go to jail, that the organizers and Dr. Jim Lawson would tell us in Los Angeles, who was helping to formulate the demonstrations, that you have a plan. You may even have an intention to go to jail. You may even have an intention to be sprayed with water hoses. You may even have an intention to absolutely know that all of these things are going to happen because it is their faith which proved to be greater than anyone else's hatred. It is their faith that proved to be greater than anybody else's legislation. It is their faith that proved to be greater than anybody else's Jim Crow laws. It is their faith that proved to be greater than any kind of previous enrollment in Arkansas's high school. It's their faith that absolutely penetrated the illusory sense that there was some separation going on. It was that faith that absolutely dissolved any sense of hatred. Even in the jail cells, when Dr. King was in there talking with these men who were trying to convince him, his jailer, when he was trying to convince them, when they were trying to convince him that this didn't make sense, that this didn't work, that what they were doing wasn't going to happen, Dr. King stepped in his truth into his heaven and spoke to them and asked them how much they were making. And when they told him what they were making, Dr. King said, "You need to be with us protesting because that's not enough for you to live on. You need to be with us talking about what it is that could be, what it is that can be, and what it is that is already true in the kingdom, which is your prosperity as your divine birthright." See, when you are anchored in truth, when you are convicted in an unquestionable faith, then you know that there is nothing that could ever defeat that truth. Then you know that there is nothing that ever could compromise your acceptance of that truth. When you absolutely know this, then you have the faith. It doesn't even matter how much of it that you have, because it will grow if you stick with it. If you've seen a mustard seed, if you've seen a bush that comes from a mustard seed, if you've seen how expansion happens from just a little bit of something, then you can know that there is never a time when you should lose faith. There is never a time when you will lose faith. There is never a time when faith will lose you. Because innately, you are a spiritual being, just as the reading said. You are already a spiritual being. It is time for you to embody your essence. It is time for you to know in the invisible, it must come into the visible. You are a creative being. Every moment that you are believing something, you are creating. So be clear that what you want to create is something that will bring you into your joy. Because your meditative thought for the week is, to be well, happy, and to express freedom is to be in accord with divine law and wisdom. So, if you don't find yourself well, there may be some confusion that's going on in your mind. If you don't find yourself happy, there may be some belief that you don't have the worthiness to be happy. It doesn't mean that it's a true belief. There are many false beliefs that are navigating our lives even now. If you have an experience where you feel bound, when you feel trapped, when you feel that there's no way out, then you have bought in to a disconnect with the very essence of who you are, freedom. And because you have the freedom to choose, you can choose again to remember who you are, to know your divine nature, and to speak from, to move from, to absolutely know from that place that is within you, that is heaven, that all things are possible. That is the invitation of this message. That is the invitation of this ministry. That is the invitation of your very spirit. I invite you to accept it. Namaste.